Hi, and welcome to Origin of Noah's Ark and the Big Flood here in Origin of Concepts. Today I will show you exactly where the Bible writers got the story for the Big Flood and Noah's Ark. The story of Noah's Ark is a Bible narrative found in the book of Genesis, describing a massive flood, the deluge, sent by God to cleanse the earth of human wickedness and violence. And please note here, it was not to wipe out humanity from the planet Earth, because that's what many believes. Noah and his sons are fictional characters used as examples of surviving or navigate around the negative qualities of man to gain wisdom. So it was not a real family. Someone believes that, but you will find out in this video that's not the case. Noah's Ark is not a boat, rather a basket or a container based on the same origin as Moses' basket and the Ark of the Covenant. You can go see my Ark of the Covenant video and I'll show you exactly where to find it. The flood myth has nothing to do with a prehistorical catastrophe or ancient apocalypse, because all the drama unfolds in the center of the Milky Way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made this video, of course. So let's take a look at the Milky Way here and find the Noah's Ark and the Great Flood. And before we start, the Great Flood and Noah's Ark from Genesis, the Old Testament, is just a copycat from ancient times, long before the Abrahamic religions existed. So let's start. Noah is a character based on various aspects of the Milky Way center. Primarily the disk, the spirit, and the striped shadow here. Yeah, this is always the hero. And the Ark is described by various aspects of the Milky Way center too. And to show you the greatest or most interesting feature first, the flood is visualized by the striped shadow here. This is the flood on Earth. But let's go through some key features and all the text to back this up. First of all, let's see how the ark is created. Or in the Bible, it's not mentioned as an ark, but it's named Tibah. And the ark is made of gopher wood, and nobody in the entire world knows what gopher wood is, because the etymology doesn't have any answers and nobody has. And that's, of course, because the gopher wood doesn't exist. Although, because the gopher wood means wood full of golden resin, which is an allegory of the tree in the Milky Way center, filled with golden light from the disk. So let's draw the tree here. This is the acacia, or all kind of trees, and here's the trunk, the crown and the trunk of the world tree, or the tree of life, so to speak. All the trees. And the golden resin of the gopher tree is, of course, the light from the golden disc here running into the Milky Way center and specific down the stripe shadow and into the mortal world, so we can gain some wisdom. So this is the resin, the golden resin from the tree, the gopher wood. So here you got it. Okay, let's go next. The ark must contain rooms. And the rooms is the stripe shadow here. This is the rooms in the ark, or the walls between the rooms, but it makes up the rooms. The ark must be pitched on the inside and outside with pitch or bitumen, a black glue. And the black glue is, of course, the three black shadows here in the Milky Way center. And it can also be all this, but you'll see in a moment. So this is the bitumen, or the black glue, stitching the ark together. The ark have a door, one door on the side, and this door is placed right here. The ark, funny, the arch is the door on the side of the ark. So the ark is the arch. And the ark must have a window. And this window is not explained as a window in the Genesis. It is the term is tzohar, which meaning skylight. Skylight. And let me show you the skylight. Because first of all, we got the light here, the golden disc, the spirit light. And then we got the sky above. So here you got the skylight, or the tzohar from the Hebrew language. Yeah, sometimes you have to be literal to understand stuff, but that's what they are talking about. And then we got the measures, which is not really measures, but it's a metaphor. It looked like a measure, because the window must be placed a cubit above. So, and then all the experts are starting to measure 1 cubit or 5 cubits, but that's not the case, because cubit means an elbow to the fingertips. So then we don't have to look for measurements, but we have to look for an elbow and fingertips, and they can be found right here, because this is the elbow, so to speak. Oh wait, I'll do it. The elbow this is the elbow here, starts and going here, and that's the shoulder up here. And then we got all the fingertips here. That's the stripe shadow. This is the hand in the Milky Way, always. So here you got the cubit. And the window is the area, we already know that. And the skylight, we got that. And the elbow and fingers is the silvery and striped shadow here, So here we got the cubit, pointing out the window here. Here you got it. Okay, then we're going back to the door. The door must be placed in the side of the ark, with lower, second, and third stories, floors. So the ark got floors. And of course, the door is here. And then we got the floors. The floors is visualized by the 3 steps in the striped shadow. So here we got like 1 floor, 2 floor, and 3 floor. The striped shadows is like, split up into pairs, which is heavily used in a lot of myth around the world. So this is the 3 floors in the ark. And then we got a roof on the ark too. The Bible doesn't mention any roof, but there is a roof because the roof is the dark shadows here roofing the ark or the container here, or the basket of reeds here, where Moses is led and put on the Nile river in the sky. So this is the basket of reeds and the ark. And then we reach the point where people are starting entering the ark. Now we know, just to finish the ark off, that the ark is of course the Milky Way center, the container containing the golden disk light, the spirit, which is supposed to be manifested into the earth, the dark or the striped shadow here. Okay, let's look at the guests on the ark. Noah must enter the ark together with his wife and his 3 sons and their wives. And we already know where Noah is because he's here. The striped shadow and the disc is his head. Hello, Noah, my friend. Thanks for looking by. And Noah's wife is the silvery shadow here with a female posture. You know, it's always the man and the wife. And then Noah got 3 sons and their wives, which is visualized by the 3 pairs of lines in the striped shadow. So here we got his 3 sons and their wives. So here you got it. And then we got the animals. The animals, 2 of each sort or each flesh, cattle and creeping thing that's the name mentioned in the Bible. There's bird, cattle, and creeping things. The animals are, of course, the striped shadow. This is all the animals and the cattles entering the ark. Here we go, 2 by 2. And those are typical animals. The bird and the cattle and creeping things, you know, there's a reason why there's not a cat and a rabbit and so on, because these 3 animals are typical animals mentioned in many myths as an allegory of the striped shadow, even before the Old Testament. And to make it quick, the creeping thing is of course the serpent here, and we got the cattle's, the striped shadow also represent the cattle's. For example, in the story of Heracles, you know, that has to clean out the stables or steal the cattle's. It's the same shadow. And then we got the birds, the big birds flying here. It could be the dove and it could be the eagle, which is here. This is the eagle standing here. So this is the three main birds. Main animals, always mentioned, because that's an allegory of the Milky Way center, of course. It has nothing to do with the animals. Okay. And then we got to the flood, the deluge, which is what it's all about. And let's read up here. God bring a flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under the heaven. That was cryptic, huh? But let's see if we can manage to find it. First of all, the flood is the striped shadow here, which is the wave, so to speak, emanating from the sea, or the rising water from the sea, the heavy wave. And as I told you before, the flesh is the striped shadow. The manifested spirit forms into, flesh, or the disk light, with the red light of the Milky Way center, the blood flowing into the meat. So here you got the flesh, two of each flesh. And he put the water upon earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. So let's take a look at the breath of life. Because it's no secret that the breath is the striped shadow here, coming out of the great mouth in the Milky Way center here. So here you see the breath of life. And it can also be the vice versa. It can be the nostrils is in here, the sea. So you can also breathe life into the nostrils, and because that's also mentioned somewhere in the Bible and other texts before the Bible. Okay. The striped shadow is under the heaven, of course, because we're in the breath of life from under the heaven. And as I showed you before, this is the heaven. And here's the breath of life. Okay, so now you know where the great deluge is. And by the way, the big wave hits the earth. And let me illustrate that, because the stripes here is the coiled serpent or the wave. And the striped shadow here is also the earth. In basically every single myth around the world, this place is the earth. Let's move on, because all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. Let's take a closer look at that. The fountains is, of course, the striped shadow again. This is the water coming up as a fountain. And it is the fountain, it comes from the well here, so to speak, and jumps into the striped shadow. And the window of heaven is the area above the disc. So once again we got the heaven opened up and started the mess around the big flood here. So here you got that. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And to be honest, I have no clue where they got 40 days and 40 nights from, but that's in the Bible. There's this and numbers is used like a code to understand part of the Bible. Can't remember the name right now, but it doesn't matter. Let's find the rain upon the earth, because the striped shadow is, of course, the rain. And as I told you before, the striped shadow is also the earth. So the story always goes back to the striped shadow, because generally the striped shadow is the manifested spirit, here to us, a living thing. And we go to all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died. And let me start showing you the dry land here. And as I told you before, this is the big nose of the Milky Way, and here we got the nostrils. And from the nostrils we got the breath of life, the striped shadow here. So it all fits together. And I think we got it all there. Yeah. Noah opened the window of the ark and sent forth a raven. So he opens the window, and we already know that the window is here. And then he sent forth the raven, which is sitting right here. I'll just make an outline of a raven to illustrate. This is always the raven sitting here, also on the shoulders of Odin in Norse mythology and in other myths. So here you got the raven, and there's nothing written about the raven unless that it's never coming back. So that's that chapter. And then, there is a very cryptic texture in the Bible, because it says, no, sorry, it was not about the raven, it's the dove. Noah sends a dove, but the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. So we got, the sole of the foot of the dove. So let's find the dove. The dove is the white area here, and this is the wings of the dove, and the beak is the striped shadow. But the dove is like an allegory of the white part here, because that's the white part of the Milky Way, the white bird. So now we know where the dove is. So let me give you a little funny thing here. The dove is the white area above the disc. And, the sole of the foot here. When you see the three dark shadows here, that forms the foot of the dove. So it's a foot standing. So it's both the claws of it can be the claws of the eagle or the dove or any kind of bird. So here it is. And the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. So that's the sole of the foot of the dove. Perfect. And by the way, it's also the soul of the human. is here, the foot. So it's both the foot and the bird here. I think you got me. Noah put forth his hand and took the dove and pulled it into the ark. Okay, so now the ark is sitting in his hand, so it doesn't have spread wings. So this is just the dove here. I'll make a separate video explaining the dove in deeper details. But for now, this is the dove. And Noah put it in his hand. And this is the hand of Noah here. Gently taking the dove inside the ark. So here you got the story. The hand that is gripping the dove and taking it inside. And then the texture also writes the dove comes back with an olive twig in its beak. And the olive twigs is of course the striped shadow here. With the olive leaves. And the reason why it's an olive is because this is the olive green part of the Milky Way. If you take a look at it, it's, the olive oil or the olive, the place of olive trees. And the bird got it in its beak. And this is the striped shadow is also the beak, so to speak, of the bird here. And here's the wings. Quack, quack. So here you got the dove with the olive twig. Let's move on. The ark rested in the 7 months on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. First of all, 7 is an allegory of the 7 stripes here in the striped shadow. And the mountain or the mountains of Ararat is of course the mountain in the Milky Way center. There are 2 mountains. And here the ark rested. And I got a note here because, the ark is not described as a ship. But in later mythologies and stories, it people like to see the ship on the mountain top. So let me try to illustrate it here. This is the mountaintop, and the striped shadow here always represents the shipwreck. The smashed ship here. So this is the shipwreck on the Mount Ararat. But it's not a Bible story, but it's just tell that it landed there, but it's not a boat. But the striped shadow is always the inspiration source for divine boats or boats in the mythology. And the boat is also the crescent. Not the half moon, but the crescent. So now we reach the aftermath of the flood. Noah builds an altar. And of course the altar is the entire Milky Way here. This is the altar. And just to give it a little meaning, you got the fire here on the altar, the divine disc light, and then you need some wood to fire up the altar, which is of course the striped shadow here. So here you got the altar. for burnt offerings. I don't think they offered any living things. I think they burned their materialistic mind, to obtain wisdom. But I'll let you decide. And when Noah have set up the altar, he make a covenant, or a covenant is made between God and Noah and all living creatures. And let's start with all the living creatures, which is of course the stripes here in the stripe shadow. And the covenant is visualized by the stripe shadow, because this is also the tablet or the stone with inscriptions with God's word, or the covenant with God and humans. The bridge between the divine or spirit world and the mortal world. Or maybe the connection between the materialistic you and the inner you, or the the deeper you. So I just show the origin here, then you can decide the deeper meaning. And God set a bow, not a rainbow. That's a misinterpretation. God set a bow in the cloud, and it shall be a visible sign for a covenant between me and the earth. Okay, so let's discuss the rainbow bow part, because the bow is the crescent here. This is the bow. And it's not a rainbow. It's always misinterpreted. When it is a rainbow, it's a bow of rain, because the stripes is the rain in the sky. And the colors, if it's a rainbow or bow of rain, is all the colored stars in this specific area of the Milky Way center. All kinds of colors. Okay, so here we got the bow, which is the bridge between the divine and mortal worlds, or the bridge between ignorance and wisdom. The sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Okay, so Ham is the father of Canaan. First of all, the three sons of Noah is visualized by the three steps in the striped shadow. So here we got one son, and the second son, and the third son. Ham means hot and warm, which is an allegory of the red-hot part of the Milky Way center. The red light emanating from the disk and flows into the striped shadow. So the Ham is the sun closest to the spirit light here, the hot and warm light emanating down through the striped shadow to give man wisdom. And Canaan, that's a very debated subject, but I'll get into it very little here, because Canaan means the lowland, which is an allegory of the striped shadow, which is the black land in the valley between the two mountains. So Canaan is the black land here, the lowland between the two mountains. So it's supposed to go uphill here and uphill here. So that's the land, the lowland in the valley between the mountains. And I got a note here. The physical land of Canaan is named after the center of the Milky Way. The land flowing with milk and honey. And the wide area above the disk, let me delete the hills. The milk is the milky white part above the disk. And the honey is, of course, the golden disk in the Milky Way center. And the red light is the flowing honey. And the white shadows is the milk flowing in the promised land of milk and honey. Okay, then we got the 3 sons of Noah overspread or covered the whole earth, which is interpreted as their offspring has, is the human kind of earth. But let's take a deeper look into that. Because the striped shadow is, so to speak, the offspring of the sons of Noah. The manifestation of the spirit light of Noah and his wife in the mortal world, so to speak. You always need a new generation to pass over the wisdom. And let's go to the aftermath here. Because Noah planted a vineyard. Of course he did. The vineyard is the striped shadow here. And here you got all the vines. The striped shadow here is the vineyard. And the wine is, of course, the red light here running through all the grapes in the vineyard. So here you got the wine and the vineyard. The manifested spirit. This is also used for Jesus, the blood of Jesus or the wine they drink at the Last Supper. The red light of the Milky Way. Noah drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. Okay, so let's draw Noah. Here is the drunk Noah, and he is uncovered within his tent, because the tent is opened. So here we got the uncovered Noah, the drunk Noah. And the tent is also the tabernacle, wherein the Ark of the Covenant is hidden. And a lot of other tents in the worldwide myth around the world. And before it ends, Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward. They will cover their father. And of course the garments is the 2 shadows here on the shoulders. Every time you hear the name shoulder, just look at those 2 shadows, because that's the shoulders of everything. Even the pharaohs in Egypt. And they went backward and they cover the drunk Noah here in the vineyard. He's drunk of the wine from the golden disk. Okay, that's all I got on Noah's Ark and the Great Flood. So next time you think the Great Flood was like a real event caused by a comet or something like that, well, that's not the case. Maybe that's the case, but that's not what's written in the Bible. And that's a fact. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this video. And until the next video, take care. Bye.